night was oppressive, draped in a thick shroud of darkness that seemed to stifle even the sounds of nocturnal creatures. I ventured deeper into the heart of the Louisiana Bayou, the murky waters of the swamp lapping at my boots with each cautious step. My lantern cast an eerie glow, barely illuminating the treacherous path ahead. The legends that had echoed through the village led me here, to this desolate and forsaken place. They spoke of a coven of witches, whispers that carried on the swamp's fetid breath. With each step, my skepticism waned, replaced by a gnawing sense of dread that seemed to grow with every croak of a distant frog and rustle of unseen creatures in the underbrush. Then, through the dense curtain of Spanish moss and cypress trees, I saw a dim, flickering light. I moved closer, guided only by the faint glow of fireflies that flitted about like spectral guardians of the night. As I approached, the haunting chant reached my ears like a siren's song, beckoning me toward an unknown abyss. A clearing opened before me, and there, in the heart of the swamp, an otherworldly scene unfolded. A circle of hooded figures moved with an otherworldly grace around a massive bonfire, its flames dancing in unnatural hues of green and blue. Their voices, a cacophony of discordant notes, seemed to emanate from the very depths of the earth, resonating in my bones. The figures' robes billowed in the wind, and I could barely make out the symbols and runes that adorned their clothing. The air was thick with the scent of herbs and incense, swirling around me like a spectral fog. My heart quickened as I realized that I was witnessing something beyond the realm of mortal understanding, a ritual that defied all reason and sanity. The circle's dance grew more frenzied, and I felt an invisible force pulling me closer against my will. My breath hitched as I watched in silent horror, my eyes locked on the bonfire's flames, which now seemed to take on grotesque, shifting forms, like phantoms from a nightmare. The words of their chant, a guttural and ancient tongue, wormed their way into my mind, filling it with dread and despair. In that moment, I knew I had stumbled upon a nightmare, a malevolent force beyond human comprehension. I had scoffed at the tales, dismissed them as mere superstitions, but now, as I stood on the precipice of the unknown, I could no longer deny the chilling truth the Bayou held secrets darker than any I had ever imagined. The rhythmic drumming of their feet and the eerie chants filled the air, merging with the crackling of the bonfire. Shadows danced wildly, casting grotesque shapes upon the gnarled trees that surrounded the clearing. My heart pounded, each beat matching the frenzied tempo of the witch's chant. The woman who had emerged from the shadows was unlike any human I had ever seen. Her skin was as pale as the moonlight, and her eyes burned with an unnatural crimson glow. A malicious grin twisted her lips as she extended her bony fingers towards me. "Who dares to intrude upon our sacred rite?" she hissed, her voice dripping with venom. Her eyes locked onto mine, and it felt as if they were peering into the very depths of my soul. Frozen in fear, I couldn't break her gaze. The other hooded figures continued their dance, their movements growing increasingly erratic. It was as though the energy in the air had taken on a life of its own, electrifying the atmosphere with an ominous power. The woman drew closer, her feet gliding over the mossy ground with an otherworldly grace. She clutched a staff, adorned with bones and feathers, which seemed to pulsate with a malevolent energy. As she drew the staff through the air, it left behind a trail of shimmering sparks. "You will bear witness to our power," she whispered, her voice like a sinister lullaby. Her words crawled into my mind, like insidious serpents, coiling around my thoughts and squeezing the last vestiges of resistance from me. In that moment, I understood the true horror of the situation. This was not merely a gathering of practitioners of dark arts. It was a pact with forces from the netherworld. The very ground beneath us seemed to tremble in response to their summoning, and the night air grew heavier with each passing moment. I was an unwilling spectator to an unholy communion, a fusion of the living and the supernatural. As the ritual neared its terrifying climax, I knew that I had to escape this nightmarish spectacle. But my legs felt like lead, and I was paralyzed by fear as the world around me spiraled further into madness. The swamp was an inky abyss, the twisted branches and dense foliage forming a labyrinth that seemed designed to keep intruders trapped within its malevolent embrace. Every step through the muck and water felt like a struggle against unseen forces, as if the very swamp itself conspired to hold me captive. My heart pounded in my chest like a war drum, its relentless beat urging me to flee faster, to escape the horrors that lurked behind. I could hear the distant echoes of the witch's incantations, a haunting melody that seemed to reverberate through the night, twisting and distorting reality. Branches lashed out at me, leaving welts and scratches on my skin. But I pushed on, driven by sheer terror and the primal instinct to survive. The air was thick with the eerie sounds of the Bayou frogs, croaking, unseen creatures slithering through the water, and the mournful cries of nocturnal birds. I stumbled and fell, splashing into a murky pool, but I forced myself to rise, my clothes heavy and waterlogged. My breath came in ragged gasps as I stumbled through the swamp, my surroundings a nightmarish blur. It was as though the very essence of the swamp had turned against me, twisting my sense of direction and time. Finally, I burst through a thicket of gnarled trees and emerged onto the muddy bank of the bayou. The moon had reappeared, casting a feeble, ghostly light upon the water's surface. Gasping for breath, I collapsed onto the ground, my body trembling with exhaustion and fear. I knew I had escaped the immediate danger of the witch's ritual, but the memory of that unholy gathering would haunt me forever. I was forever marked as an eyewitness to the forbidden, a living testament to the horrors that lurked in the heart of the Louisiana Bayou. And as long as I lived, I would carry the weight of that sinister night. A night when the boundary between our world and the supernatural was shattered, leaving me forever changed